welcome to my little paintbrush. My name is Miss Cami and I'm super excited to paint with you guys from home today. But just because you're not in the studio with me does not mean my rules do not still apply. Okay, so remember to be kind to yourself. All of our jellyfish will look different by the end of this class. So don't stress out. We're different and so will our art be, okay? Before we get started, I want to go over our brushes just real quick so you know which ones I'll be using today, okay? First, I have a nice big flat brush, okay? I have what I call a filbert brush. It's just rounded on the top instead of straight across, okay? If you don't have this, you can use a smaller flat, no big deal. I have a number 6 round brush, okay? And then of course I have my detail brush. So these are the brushes I'm going to stick with tonight, but please don't let the tools that you have stop you from creating. We can do many paintings with many different types of brushes, so make do with what you have and let's just have a good time, okay? All right, so first brush will be our flat. And you might notice that your canvas for this class is completely blank. Don't stress out. You're going to be able to do this, I promise. So be confident in yourself. Let's get our brush wet. We want to loosen up our bristles. And now for our canvas, we're going to make this really dark, deep blue water all in the back of our jellyfish, okay? So here on my plate, I have black and then of course our phthalo blue, which we love. And I'm going to mix in some black and blue together. You might feel that you're not really seeing the blue and wondering why this step even matters. Trust me, just go with it. When your paint dries, your background won't be this harsh black. It will have this little tint of blue to it, which will be really fun and complementary to our neon greens. All right, so I'm just going to keep kind of pulling in some blue into my black until I feel like I have a good shade. Now, the camera's probably not going to pull up much of a difference between this and this, but once you start brushing your canvas, you might start to see that blue come through a little more. Okay, of course I'm going to wet my brush again, and now I'm going to fill in my background. And right away, I can see the blue. I hope you can too. I'm going to keep my strokes vertical, but you can do horizontal as well. For this step, it doesn't really matter. We just don't want to go swirly all in our background, okay? And we're just going to keep going up and down. Now my surface is a little bit larger than yours, so don't let that throw you off. It's just what I'm painting on today. And we're just going to continue to fill this in. Now, don't be shy with your paint for this step. Really make sure it's nice and thinned out with your water and kind of just have to scoop it onto your brush because you've got a lot of surface to cover. Normally I don't encourage scooping, especially with our little artist, but when you have to fill a big surface like this, it's okay to just get in there and get it done. Notice I go to my water pretty often, and that's important. Our acrylic paint gets thirsty, it needs a drink all the time. So if you're feeling like your paint is kind of sticky and thick, go ahead and thin it out, okay? It should glide pretty smoothly on your canvas. We are just about done. This would be a great time to wrap your canvas as well, so go ahead and take that nice deep blue around all 4 edges. That way when you are ready to display your masterpiece, it's nice and completed. And feel free to just flip the canvas over to get the top or the bottom. No problem. You can move it as much as you need to. All right, you guys. I think we have a nice, solid background. let's wash our brush really good, okay? A tip I always give, and we have at our studio for a lot of our classes, is to have 2 jars of water. That way when it's time to dilute your paint, you have clean water to do it with. Because if you dilute your paint with dirty water, it will actually change the color of your paint. And of course this jellyfish is a bright green, and we want to preserve that as much as we can. All right, my brush is washed. I'm going to set that aside. And now the next thing I need to do is make 3 different shades of green, okay? So while our background is drying, let's go ahead and mix some colors together. Okay, I'm going to grab my filbert to do this, okay? And here is my plate, and these are the paints that you will have at home. So you have some phthalo green, a nice bright yellow, and of course white, okay? So I'm going to get my brush in some clean water, and I'm going to start to mix together a super, super light, almost yellowy green, and then I'll do a medium tone, and then of course my darkest, okay? So over here, I'm going to just spread out my paint here. So there's some yellow. This is my brightest green. So notice I just scooped the teeniest bit of green into this pile. Not much at all, okay? Mixed it together. I'm also going to add a little bit of white, okay? White is always a good idea. It's our friend. I might add a little bit more. So I have this nice light green, okay? Now I'm going to, notice I just find anywhere on my plate that's got a space and I just start to mix. This is our medium shade of green, okay? So not too dark, but not super light either. This is important. Phthalo green will pull blue if you add too much white and not enough yellow, okay? So if you want like a turquoisey jellyfish, you can absolutely go that route with your phthalo green. Just start adding white instead of yellow. So you can see the difference between those 2 shades. And now my final shade of green, I have this nice corner over here. Use all of your palette. That's what true artists do. I'm just going to mix in until I get my 3rd and final shade of green, which is this dark one. So here's our lightest, got our medium, and then our darkest shade. So our greens are ready to go. We are ready for our jellyfish as soon as it is on our canvas for painting. So let's wash our filbert out. Really good here. Now for this next step, you're going to need to find yourself a piece of chalk, or you can find a light colored watercolor pencil, or any kind of color pencil will work just fine. You can even use graphite. It'll be harder to see, but if that's all you have, you'll be able to see it just enough to paint, okay? Again, use what you have around the house. Don't let tools stop you from creating, okay? I've got a little piece of chalk. And now, of course, our canvas is ready for us. It's nice and dry. If yours isn't dry yet, you need to hold off on this step. You don't want to start tracing on it until it's nice and dry, okay? Now, we have to put in our jellyfish. All right, here we go. I want you to think of just a big frowny face, okay? So here we go. There is my big frowny face, okay? Nothing complicated about that. And just a tip if you're new to chalk, if you don't like your placement, you can get a brush, some clean water, and it comes right off, okay? That's why we love to use chalk. I can use it to kind of reshape it if I want to, or take the whole thing off completely, no big deal, okay? But my jellyfish shape is just fine with me. Once I have my rainbow, or you want to refer to it as your frowny face, in place, I'm going to come to the center of it, and I'm going to do a nice teardrop shape, okay? One right in the middle, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 to the corner, okay? And then I have to do it on the other side too. So here we go. 1, 2, and 3. Now, this is just a piece of chalk, so we're not committed to anything yet. So don't let this step overwhelm you, okay? You can obviously change as you start to paint. You're not committed to these lines, okay? So now we're going to do the other side of our jellyfish. So it's behind there, but it's showing through. So right in the middle here, I'm going to lightly do another teardrop, and then a couple of more as we kind of go to the side. You see that start to come in here? Okay. Got our little shapes here. Again, I'm not committed. I'm just going to put in what I see for now and call it good, okay? So here's my jellyfish. Now I'm going to do some of my little tentacles. Okay, so right here, I've got my big ones. And they curve like this, okay? Then we've got this one over here, same thing, it's going to curve out and around like that, okay? Again, I can go back and I can say, oh, I want to change it a little bit. No problem. Do you need a clap? That's okay, I need to fix my jellyfish anyway. This one's going to be tricky. Alright, clap. Of course it would be you, not Emmy. Okay, here we go. The other ones, I'm not going to worry about tracing them in, but if you want to, that's fine. This is a good start for me, okay? Alright. Now let's switch over to our number 6 round brush. Get it wet in some clean water. And now I'm going to go into my white paint and I'm just going to shape my jellyfish. Everywhere where I've got chalk, I'm going to do a nice little stroke of white paint, okay? I'm going to start right here. And I'm just going to begin the process of filling in a really fun jellyfish here. And if your paint is thinned out enough, you'll be able to do these strokes without them breaking. Remember, it breaks when we start to see our canvas and it gets super jagged. We've got to be confident in ourselves, right? And we just got to go for it. Okay. And then we've got a few down here, of course. I'm just going to put those in. I'm painting right over my chalk where I'm confident, and you can see I decided to opt out of going that far down. Not a big deal. Don't worry about taking your chalk off your canvas quite yet though, okay? Also, your chalk will soak up your paint a lot faster. Okay, so you might find that you're using water much more often, okay? So let's see. After this, let's go ahead and just wash our brush. And we're going to switch to our filbert, okay? Now, I'm not going to get it wet because we're going to do dry brushing, one of our favorite things to do at the studio. So with a dry filbert, I'm going to load with white paint, and I'm going to start to dry brush within each little teardrop, okay? Starting at the top, I press down, and I pull away from the canvas towards the end of my stroke. And this is what I call that broken stroke, okay? So let's just keep going. I don't want any two strokes to end at the same time. I want to make sure they're ending at different times. Some can be shorter than others. Some can come all the way down. But every stroke should end A little different than the one before. Okay, pretty awesome. I think we're going to give that just a minute to dry, okay? And while it dries, we're going to go ahead and put in our biggest tentacles. But I am not loving these, so I'm going to go ahead and take these off. I'm going to I'm going to chalk them in a little different. And that's something you can do, okay? No problem. Happens all the time. We put something in, we don't love it, we do it again. It's all right. Okay, so this time I'm going to do the same motion. I just think I want a few more swivels in it before it ends at the bottom of the canvas. So I've got my chalk. I'm going to start up here in this middle one. And see, I'm just going to give it a few more of those swivels. There we go. I think I like that a little bit better. Okay? Don't worry about all this that you're looking at. Just leave that stuff alone. You won't see it at the end. Okay, so my little round brush, or my number 6, not my detail, my number 6 brush, I'm going to paint directly over those chalk lines I just made. Because now I'm feeling better about them. There we go. Definitely like that better. And these are our thickest tentacles too, so I'm pressing a little bit more with my brush on those as well. All right. Wash my brush out. Our jellyfish is coming along nicely. I've lost my filbert brush, but that's okay. We will find it. Right here, no problem. Okay, let's go to our lightest green that we made. We're going to continue to dry brush, so make sure your brush is nice and dry. Kind of press down on a towel or a paper towel. And lightest green, here we go. I'm going to start to dry brush right over that white. And you might be asking yourself why you put the white in to begin with. And the answer to that is because this bright, bright green would never show through if we did it directly on the black. So we needed the white in first. All right, so I'm just going to brush it down, just like so. And if some of the white underneath is coming through, I say leave it. That's just super fun. Okay, we're going to work pretty quickly now getting these layers in. Now I'm going to go to my second shade of green. Okay, so I'm going to wipe off that light one, go into my second. I didn't wash my brush, I just wiped it. Okay, and I'm going to pull down my second layer of green, but this time I'm not going to come all the way down. This time I'm going to stop right before. Okay. So you can really see down at the bottom that super light green still coming through. I keep dipping in the wrong shade of green. Okay, here we go. So just keep brushing, but leave some of that super light coming through at the bottom. Wipe my brush out one more time, and now I'm going into my darkest shade, okay? This time, again, I'm going to stop so we can see all those fun layers underneath, okay? And pull it down again. Different lengths, a different length of stroke every time. Okay, these will all kind of blend together and be super fun, complementary to each other. There we go. Got all that in there. Looking pretty fun, you guys. Okay, washing my filbert out. Jellyfish goes in pretty fast once we get going. Okay, now I'm going to switch to my round again, my number 6, and I'm going to go into my darkest green, and I'm going to put a nice smiley face just on the base of each of these teardrop shapes. Okay, I might switch between my medium shade and my dark shade if I feel like it's not coming off the canvas very well. Just get those all in there. And then we'll do the same thing down here with these that are kind of in the background. Okay. Just real quick, okay? Real quick stroke. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my medium green and go right over these white, two thick white tentacles here. There we go. And now I'm going to switch from each shade of green while I put in my other tentacles. I'm going to keep using my number 6 brush, okay? It's all about pressure at this point. If I push really hard, I'm going to get a light, thin streak of a tentacle. If I press really hard, I'm going to get another thick one. And for me, I want these two to be the thickest ones I have. Okay, so I'm going to start with my light green here. I haven't washed my brush because we're just working in and out of greens, so no need to wash it. You can wipe it if it's feeling like it's too thick. Let's see, I'm going to do about 5 little tentacles on either side of my big one, okay? So first I'm going to come in here with my lightest green. I'm going to shape one in. Notice I'm just barely pressing on my canvas. And of course we want these all to be different. I'm going to do a couple over here as well. Okay, and then I'll just wipe my brush, not wash it. I'll go into my dark green, and I'll put in a few more. They can even overlap each other. No problem there. If at any point you can't see one, you can go right over it again. Your background is nice and dark, so you want to keep that in mind. Another one in right here. Okay, so it's just flowy. I'm going to go into my medium green. I'll do another one. I'll do some that start from that back point there. So not up at the top, but they'll start on the other side of our little jellyfish. All right. Might just curve one more. This feels kind of empty right here. Just curve one more in there. Phew! There we go. All right. Give my brush a wash. And I'm going to go over my middle tentacles one more time. Okay? Really want a nice, good layer on those, so that that white streak doesn't show through too much. So I'll go over those again. Okay. Wash that out. And at this point, we should be nice and dry up here. So with my dry filbert brush and some white paint, I'm going to start to highlight the very top of my super fun jellyfish, okay? This is my last little dry brush right at the top. Not covering up my green. I worked hard on that. But this jellyfish is facing upwards towards whatever light might be coming down into the ocean. Okay, so we're going to play off of that a little bit. Brushing that white down, coming further again, no 2 strokes ending at the same time if we can help it. Make sure it's nice and thick up there at the very tippity top. Nice, good layer up there. So we have a nice white at the top. Okay. This is looking pretty good, you guys. I think that we need to help these little smiley faces stand out a little bit. So let's go ahead and grab our round and make sure that they play a big part in our painting. We don't want them to get drowned by the dark sea here. Sounded so poetic. Okay. All right. Yes, here we go. All right, let's go ahead and with our round and some white paint, add some tentacles that are kind of done in dashes. Okay, so these are super fun. I'm going to load my brush with white paint, and then I'm going to start right here on this one, and I'm just going to dash. See this? Just dashing in this one. Kind of helps our painting have a little bit of texture to it amidst all this smooth flowiness. Then I'll come, this one's going to start from behind here, so I'm going to come, that's going to curve around. Again, you don't have to do exactly the same length, color, or placing on your own jellyfish. This is what I'm going to do for mine. All right, then we'll go over to this one. Same thing, I put 3 over here, so I'm going to do about 3 on this side as well. Dash, dash, dash. Okay, we'll do one right here. This one's going to come around, and I think I'll pull it all the way over here. That's kind of fun. And then we'll do one more, and this one will start on the other side, behind the scenes. Awesome. Okay. Got our white paint still on our brush here. Let's go up and just kind of define each of our teardrop shapes a little bit, because they've gotten lost with all that green we did. So let's come up here and make sure we've got a nice definition of where these are at, okay? Again, you can just kind of pull in those strokes up there, but we want to define them a little bit better. Nice separation of them here. And if it's dry and you can rest your hand, it's kind of tricky to do sometimes. We'll pull some down here and there. Okay. And same thing over here. Just defining each of those a little bit better for our jellyfish. Nice. Okay, while we have that white on our brush, let's go ahead and highlight our big, thick tentacles. So we're just going to go along it with some white. And if your green is still wet, that's okay. It'll just blend right in. Okay, now that we've highlighted our nice big tentacles, we're going to switch to a little brush and get it wet. And then with our lightest green, we're going to do some tiny little strokes. These don't need to freak you out. Just remember, light, light pressure. I tell artists all the time, like a feather on your cheek, super light, okay? So here we go. Right in the bend of each of our large tentacles, we're going to do these thin little stripes. See how I'm just brushing lightly? Even if they're not completely from top to bottom, that's okay. I can come back in and define them better shortly, but right now I just want to get the main stroke in there. Make sure my paint's super loose, you guys. That's going to help you. Okay, then we'll come over here, same thing. nice and thin strokes. Okay? Just starting from one bump down and working into that center little bend there. We'll do this side over here. Getting about five little streaks is what I'm getting, 5 little lines in there. Loosening up. You'll notice maybe, if you can see on camera, I jump between my greens a lot, just depending on how they're pulling off on the canvas. If I decide I like a certain shade better, I'll switch back to it, just depending on what's happening on my canvas here. Just getting these little bitty lines in here. Here we go. All right. Rinse that out again. Back to my number 6 brush and my darkest green. Get it wet. Over to my dark green. And now I'm going to kind of add some green into each of these teardrops where I've put the white to define that this is a green jellyfish, okay? So let's go ahead and start right here on this edge and just pull in a little stroke like that. Okay, and this will help us. Up until this point, you may have felt that your jellyfish is very white, and this step will help us turn that into a nice green jellyfish. Just pulling down lightly with my brush. With each stroke, starting up in that white highlight so that we can really define that up there. We've got these separate teardrops. We don't want to cover our white, we just want to add to it. Okay. This looks pretty awesome, you guys. Wash that out. Back to my detail brush we go. This time I'm going to load with some white. And it's okay if it comes off as this limey green color. It's not a big deal. We're just going to add some white strokes in those little stripes so we can see them just a bit more. Jellyfish are super busy in all of their different parts. So if you're feeling that this is just so many steps and so many different details, this is a busy jellyfish. Okay, just keep going. And we'll do it on the other side as well. You don't have to do as many of these. You're just kind of trying to define that, hey, look, they are there. Help that green stand out from that background a little bit. Okay. Hope you guys are feeling proud because I am loving this jellyfish. Give my brush a wash. And I'm just going to make sure any of the tentacles that might be hidden a little bit, that might need another layer, I'll go ahead and put that in, okay? And you can do that with your detail, or you can switch back to your number 6 round. But if I feel like any of these colors are kind of hidden and they need to be pulled out again, I'll just kind of give them another layer. Our background is super dark, and so sometimes we need to add to this to get a nice dark background to not fight our fun colors. Then I'll go if I see any of my lighter ones that might need some extra help. Add some there. So everybody's stand out. There we go. I think our jellyfish is finished, you guys. We just have to do our bubbles. Okay, so I'm going to use my filbert for my bubbles, but you can definitely use a flat, not a big deal. I'm going to make some light blue, so I'm going to scoop some white over to my blue, swirl it around a little bit until I have the shade of blue I want. Then I'm going to wash my brush really, really good. And then I'm going to get it wet with my clean water. Okay, I want a nice, clean brush that's damp with some clean water. And I'll show you why. This technique needs a nice wet brush. With my damp brush, I'm going to dip just the edge in blue. So here's my brush. Got it nice and clean with a little blue edge. And then I'm going to shape in my bubbles. Okay. Try and get as much of a circle done as you can in a stroke. And I always tell the kids, bubbles usually travel in pairs. So go ahead and have some stuck together. Because of the water in our brush, they're going to kind of fade, if you can see that. They just kind of fade out from the outer edge in. Super fun. Every bubble, of course, is going to be a little bit different. And that's what we want, so I'm not going to stress about that. Put a big one right here. And then go ahead and put some attached to it, and then we'll even do a little smaller one here. Again, trying to do as much of that circle in one stroke as I can, but I'm also being kind to myself because circles are tricky, and I'm not going to be too upset if it's not perfect because this is hand painted and it will look that way by the end, so we're just going to be okay with it. If at any point you need to wipe your brush out because it's got too much blue on it, that's fine. Just kind of rinse it out in your clean water. Make sure it's damp again, and then right into your edge of blue we go again, putting in the rest of our bubbles. Attaching some together, doing different sizes. Let's have a nice little one right here. Okay. Now we're going to wash out our filbert again here, and then into the clean water again because we're going to do the same thing with a damp brush. This time we're going to put white on it, so we're going to have white in the corner. I had some blue on my brush, so I'm going to wash again. Put a little bit of white on the edge of my brush there, and then I'm just going to right at the kind of the tops of my bubbles and off to the side, I'm going to put a nice little highlight mark in them. Just defining all the lights that come into our bubbles as they're floating around. You can already see our bubbles start to come together, huh? Anytime I need more paint on my brush, I just want to make sure my brush is nice and damp. And of course, just put that white on the edge there. And we've got one more little bubble here. Just like that. And then you've painted your bubbles. Sit back a minute and just admire your work. I am sure it is looking amazing. So the last thing inside of our bubbles is we're going to grab our number 6 round. Mine's pretty damp already, so I don't need to get it wet, but if you need to, make sure you go into your clean water. And with my white paint, I'm just going to do a nice chunky highlight, okay? And for this, I'm going to do little swishes and then dashes, okay? Swish and dash. And then you'll start to see your bubbles really kind of start to come together and look like bubbles here. More and more with every step. Just keep going. Depending on the size of the bubble will kind of determine the size of your little swish. I like to do like little dots and then a nice swish here. Do one right there. These are looking super fun. One there. Then right here, this bubble's overlapping it. One right there. Awesome. Okay, now I want to do a bunch of little teeny bubbles because I think it would be fun. I think it would add to the overall painting. So I'm going to flip my brush upside down. We'll do the chocolate chip on the bottom. And actually, I think I need a little bit more blue because I'm going to do some blue and some white. So I'm going to make some more blue because I want a decent pile of this light blue when I go to dip my brush in it. If I don't have a decent pile, I won't get that nice chocolate chip. And that's really important for my bubbles. All right. Wash it out. And you can use any size brush for this. Just use the bottom of it. So we'll do our blue ones first. And I just dip my brush in there and start to put in some bubbles. These are just teeny ones. Different sizes, of course, traveling all around our super fun bigger bubbles. Do one right there. And then we've got some that are kind of traveling. Got to make sure I have that nice chocolate chip. These could be traveling off of our canvas a little bit. I always tell the kids and any artist I paint with to think about playing with bubbles in the summertime and what happens when you blow through that wand, because they all kind of rise and fall differently. And that just kind of helps us know how to paint bubbles so that we're not making these straight lines or anything. We're having fun with it. Just putting them in. All right. Do a couple up here in this corner. Come over here. Do a couple groupings. Really anywhere your heart desires. I like to sit back every once in a while and determine where my canvas is feeling a little empty or off balanced. And then you can go ahead and put some bubbles there. And again, all of our canvases are going to be different in our placements of everything. So remember that. You might not have bubbles exactly where I've put mine, and that's totally fine. So when I have the light blue teeny ones in, I'll wipe the bottom of my brush and move to the white because I want to do some white ones too. Always kind of bringing everything together. These are just going to be a little bit fewer, and they're kind of closer in on our blue ones here. Some of them are even attached. But you can see right away it really adds when we put in those white ones. All right, and go up here. Just dot these in. Anytime you get a funky one, you can kind of swirl your brush around a little bit. Sometimes our paint gets too thick. We don't get any nice round dots from it. Okay, just a few more, maybe one up there. Again, you can move your canvas if you're having trouble reaching certain sections. You can even overlap some of these bubbles into your big ones. There's no rules here, you guys. Just have a good time with it. All right. I think we are done with our jellyfish and our bubbles, which means we're ready to sign our painting. And of course we want to do that with a nice detail brush. And we can use any color on our palette. I think I'm going to go with white. Make sure it's nice and thinned out though. It's been sitting on my plate for a while, so it's going to get thick and sticky. And then I'm going to go right up here to this little side of my jellyfish. And I'm going to sign my name just like so. Now, if you're wondering about all your chalk marks, don't worry. As soon as your painting is completely dry, just get a damp paper towel or even a wipe. You can wipe over the whole thing and it'll take all of those chalk marks off of your canvas, okay? Because if you did it right now, it would smear all of your paint. So don't mess with it quite yet. But you guys, you painted a jellyfish and I hope you love it. I love my jellyfish and I would love to see yours. So send me some pictures and I hope to paint with you sometime soon. Bye guys.